Cone Health's COVID-19 lead physician, Dr. Brent McQuaid, is joining us. So let's just give some perspective. Let's review the numbers from our area. How many people in our area tested positive for COVID-19?
Thanks. Yeah, we know in the Cone service area that we've had around 95,000 patients test positive.
All right, and so that's testing positive, 95,000. What about the hospitalizations at Cone Health?
So far, since March of 2020, we've cared for over 6,000 inpatients. So of those 95,000, over 6,000 required hospitalization.
All right, and just recently, Cone Health lowered the number of visitors to patients in the main hospitals, not the other branches, but the main hospitals. Can you explain a little bit about why that is?
Right. Right now, we are going through what feels like almost a whole nother pandemic. The Delta variant of COVID-19 is incredibly infectious. And so while our community was able to enjoy a relative lull in new infections, and we saw very few hospitalizations for several weeks to months, we're now seeing a big spike. And so, Cone's committed to the safety of its patients, its team members, and the community members who come in and out. So because of that, we've had to restrict visitation to reduce the spread of this Delta variant.
All right, I know new information comes out, it seems like daily. So kind of let's review and keep people caught up to speed. For those who have had COVID and have questions about what's next, first and foremost, should they get vaccinated if they had COVID-19?
Yes, the recommendation from the CDC, from North Carolina, and from Cone Health is that everyone get vaccinated who's eligible, regardless of whether or not they've had COVID-19.
All right, and if you've had COVID, can you get COVID again?
It's very rare. The answer is yes. It has been reported. There are studies that have been very well designed that have shown that folks who had COVID in the past did contract it again. There's the degree of certainty we have about how sick you get is fairly low. From what I understand from reading the literature, most people who have reinfection have minimal symptoms.
Okay, and that's reinfection, have minimal symptoms. If you've never had COVID and then you get COVID, how long do those symptoms last for folks?
Again, it varies from host to host, but with what I do for a living, I'm a pulmonary and critical care doctor. I've seen people who've hospitalized. Typically, the symptoms last for days to weeks. Most people I've spoken to in the community who've contracted it, who are adults, not kids, they'll have symptoms for 7 to 10 days typically.
Mm-hmm. And for what are the most common lingering symptoms? For the longest time, we heard about the no smell, no taste. I don't know if that's still the most common lingering symptom.
Uniformly, what we hear from most of our patients is fatigue. The fatigue from COVID is just something else. I mean, it makes people feel like they don't want to get up and do anything, takes your appetite away. Just your desire to get up and go is just completely sapped after you've had COVID. And in our experience, we see that last longer than just about anything else.
And so often we hear a lot of terms being thrown around. One of those is long hauler. So can you kind of give a definition of what that is?
Yeah, so this is an individual who will have symptoms that they did not have previous to contracting COVID-19 that persist for weeks to months after the infection. So typically for most people, we would expect resolution of symptoms after contracting COVID-19 within about 2 to 3 weeks or so. Long haulers are patients who have persistent symptoms that can last for weeks to months afterwards.
And is there any kind of help available for them for those long haulers?
Yes, there is. In fact, there's a number of patients in our community who've suffered from severe COVID-19 and have significant lung damage. I'm a pulmonary and critical care doctor. I work for LeBauer Pulmonary and Critical Care, and our office actually sees patients with long-haul COVID symptoms on a regular basis. We've developed quite a bit of experience with following them closely with things like lung function testing, CT scans, checking their oxygen levels. Unfortunately, the number of patients that we have are growing every week. However, our understanding of how to take care of folks with long haul symptoms is improving.
So what should people do if they think that they are a long hauler? And would you say that that's if they've had symptoms or reoccurring fatigue, that kind of stuff, like after like 2 months or 3 months?
Right. Yeah, somewhere in that range, I think it would be reasonable to talk to their primary care doctor even sooner. I mean, if you're around the 6 week point and you still don't feel like yourself, make sure you're talking to your primary care doctor and just let her or him know, hey, I still don't feel right. They may want to do some basic tests like check some blood work or get a chest x-ray or check your oxygen level. But that's always the first step, is to go by your primary care doctor's office first.
Right, and I love this because people always talk about getting back to normal or getting back to a new normal or whichever. What advice do you have for someone who had COVID-19 about whatever their new normal is?
Generally, it's important in medicine for us to set expectations for patients and just let them know that it can take weeks to get better. Um, in the new normal, it's not going to come in the immediacy, right? You may want to get back to normal right away, but you may be fatigued for quite some time. You may have muscle weakness for quite some time. So setting those expectations that you're going to have that for weeks, I think, is very important. But then also encouraging people, don't slow down. It's really, really important to stay active, to eat a healthy diet, to keep going during that time so that your body can get stronger and eventually overcome the damage that COVID-19 caused.
Mhm. So the numbers are going up with the Delta variant. Even still, there are people who are hesitant about getting the vaccine. What would you tell them now with this new variant and how things are going?
So, again, what I do for a living, I'm a pulmonary and critical care doctor. So, the vast majority of my time is spent in ICUs caring for people who are critically ill. And unfortunately, in the last few weeks, it's been due to COVID-19 predominantly. I've put more patients on life support in the last week than I had for the relative 2 to 3 month period from April through June. We've put way more on lately. And the vast, vast, vast majority of patients that require that level of care are patients who are unvaccinated. We're talking 90% plus of our inpatient population is currently unvaccinated. There's a lot of hesitancy that's out there. There's a lot of people that are nervous about the vaccine just because it came along so quickly. I think that sometimes it's helpful to talk to people in just basic common sense numbers. Over the last year, I've helped care for thousands of patients with COVID-19. Again, we said, we cared for 6,000 at Cone Health in the last year. I've cared for 0 patients who've come in for complications of the vaccine. I mean, I think that those numbers themselves just, that speaks for itself. We're not caring for people with severe complications from the vaccine. We know tens of thousands of people in our community have been vaccinated, and they're not coming into the hospital sick. But who we're caring for are those people who have COVID-19 and never got a vaccine in the first place.